Have you ever wanted to hit anybody in the face with a small pickup truck? Well, then today is your lucky day, my fellow internet maniacs. TuxedoBandido here, and today we're diving headfirst into the sadistic small pickup truck to the face build for the Division 2. Yep, you heard me right. Now this build is all about doing things a little differently. We're not just talking about the shiniest gear set for the latest exotic. No. We're flipping the script, my friends. I'm using the new St. Elmo's exotic assault rifle in a way that'll make you question the weapon's place in your arsenal. It's like discovering a hidden superpower in your morning cup of coffee. Energizing, mind-bending, and opens up a world of endless possibilities. And let me tell you, my fellow sadistic enthusiasts, this build is all about finding the sweet spot between unique and effective. So here's the deal, my bandidos. If you're as sick and twisted as I am, if you crave those unconventional devilish builds, I want you to show your support. Hit the like and comment sadist down below, and let's build a community of fellow misfits who revel in the chaos. Welcome to the dark side, my friends.
Ain't too many kids bang with us. Situation is fight one. What you gonna do? Why go run?
Today I have a couple of build variations for you to choose from. They're all close and personal run and gun play style, each distinct and very good. So stick with me to check them all out, and I'll show you which one is my favorite and why. Both builds have the new St. Elmo exotic assault rifle. I'm using it differently than you have probably seen on other builds. The build mechanics are the same for both builds, and I'll show you how to best use it. But right now, let's get into the details of the first build. Here's the first build, and I was actually surprised at how well it performed. It looks a little odd, I agree, but let's start with the gear set. Okay, so we're using 4 pieces of Ongoing Directive. All the builds are going to. Ongoing Directive gives us 15% status effect. Perfect. We're gonna be using that. 30% reload, using that too, because we're playing out of cover, run and gun. And 4 pieces give us rules of engagement. So shooting a status affected enemy will apply a mark. That's one of the changes they made to Ongoing Directive recently. So there's a little red square above the enemy's head, and then killing a marked enemy grants a full clip of hollow point ammo for your active weapon. This is also going to give some special ammo to any allies on your squad. And that mark lasts 10 seconds. You have 10 seconds to kill that enemy you plugged with some status effects. So hollow point ammo amplifies the weapon damage by 20% and applies bleed on hit. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, yeah, so that's what the set is all about. It's that amplified damage. That's what we're after. So this build will work solo and will also work in a group. It's fully optimized. As far as the specs go on this mask, I have weapon damage and double crit chance here. Okay, so this is a crit build. We're playing into that. For the gloves, I have weapon damage and crit damage. And for the knee pads, I have weapon damage and more crit damage. And lastly, the holster is weapon damage and crit hit chance. Hey Bandidos, the community we have built together wouldn't have been possible without you. So as a thank you for supporting my channel and the community, I'm bringing you the hookup on member perks, including even more Division 2 content and the celebrated gaming music playlists. If you're not part of Texas Players Club, click the join button below. Now, as you can see overall on the build, I have a lot of red cores, and that's because the build had a really good time to kill that I wasn't really taking much damage. And also because armor isn't really worth a damn in this game unless you have something like bonus armor to go with it, which we do not. This is gonna be different here. In a lot of builds, you see this Ongoing Directive chest piece that gives you an additional 15% amplified damage. That only applies to you, not to the party. So that's cool, but if you run the closer chest piece, you can get 20% amplified damage. That's even better by 5%. And also this doesn't require you to have any special ammo. So those times when you don't have special ammo or you run out, you're still gonna have this amplified damage. And it's a separate chunk of amplified damage than the Ongoing Directive's amplified damage, thereby giving you an additional amplified multiplier. In order to run this, you need to use the technician specialization, and that's because you're looking for this linked laser pointer that's going to pulse enemies just by pointing at them. Make sure you have the right weapon selected in here. And then also I have this set to skill healing because I'm using the healer. And then you're also going to get a skill tier by using this specialization. Okay, and what's important to know is that not all weapons will actually take that laser pointer. So you need to make sure whatever weapon you decide to go with is able to accept that. Now, the one that I decided to go with actually ended up accepting it, which was a nice coincidence. So I didn't have to change the weapon. So, but before we get into the weapon, let's take a look at the backpack. So the backpack is our second piece of Uzina Getica, and that's giving us 10% armor on kill, which is important because we're running Technician up here where we could be running Gunner that would give us 10% armor on kill. So if you notice, there's not much heals on the build, but between the 10% armor on kill we're getting from this, the heals we're getting from that, plus the skill tier, and our really fast time to kill, and disabling status effects, this has just the right amount of survivability. But shotguns aren't the easiest. You're still gonna have to play fast. We're gonna talk about that. All right, so for this, I got armor, crits all across the board there, and then I am running Wicked for even more damage. So applying the status effect increases total weapon damage by 18% for 20 seconds. So yes, there's the Anarchist Cookbook, which gives you perfect Wicked, but you don't need perfectly Wicked because it only adds 7 seconds to Wicked, but since you always have status effects, you don't really need more time on Wicked. You're always turning this bad boy on. And then Golan gives you status effects, but in our case, we don't need more status effects. What we need is more survivability in the form of armor on kill. So I'm only running one armor core, but if you feel like you need more, go ahead and run another armor core here on your chest piece. We're basically at 1 million in armor, and that's actually a pretty comfortable place. But if you do add another armor core, that's not a bad idea because it will make your shield stronger. And that's the weakness of this build, okay? So you're gonna have to keep an eye on your shield. You do not want it to break. So if it looks like it's going to break, just drop your shield. You either finish that enemy, your time to kill is pretty quick anyways, or pop and cover and then let your shield heal a little bit and then get back out and do your dirty work. Either way, this is a, what do we got here? Tier 2 shield, that's right. And so I got just pretty standard mods here, nothing special. Yeah, so the Crusader shield is allowing us to get in front of those enemies and not take that micro damage. So that's the point of this shield here, okay? So you're not a tank. You don't absorb every bullet thrown your way. That's not the point of the shield. The point of the shield is to avoid that micro damage. What I mean by micro damage is that when you step in front of an enemy, and no matter how fast your time to kill is or how well your weapon staggers, and this weapon staggers quite well, the enemy tends to get a shot or two off on you, which isn't really a problem. It isn't really, but over time, over several enemies, it becomes a problem, and your 10% armor on kill won't quite keep up, and you're gonna end up either going down at the wrong time when you're surrounded by a bunch of enemies, or you're gonna have to play an armor kit before that happens. The shield is there to stop that kind of micro damage that ticks away at you over time. With the shield, 10% armor on kill will allow you to keep up with any micro damage you're accepting otherwise. And of course, we have the healer, which is healing you all the time. Just a pretty standard healer here with one skill tier at 27,000 heals per second. Nice little handy friend to have around. On our primary weapon, which is the shotgun, we have 50% crit chance and 104% crit hit damage. You're not gonna have peak crits on this build, so just try to balance out your stats here as I have. Okay, now we can talk about the weapons. This bad boy is a beast. So we got shotgun damage, damage to armor, and damage to targets out of cover. So damage to armor is great because damage to armor gives you a stronger bleed. But we're not bleeding enemies to death, and that's because our time to kill is too fast for the bleed to do that. So the bleed we're really just using to get our amplified damage and to dish out special ammo to allies when we're running with a team. So remember, I have crits and the laser pointer as a mod there. And then we got a 2.2-second reload that's not fast, that's not slow, it's just about right. And that's because Ongoing Directive has decreased our reload by 30%. So it's at a good place. It could be worse. I've decided to go with Sadist. So if you didn't know, because it doesn't tell you, Sadist is an amplified damage talent. That's right. That's 20% amplified damage. So that's 60% amplified damage across those 3 items. So the enemy has to be bleeding, of course, for that to happen. And so that's why we want this to be our primary weapon and not this. Well, why? Because the St. Elmo exotic doesn't actually have a damage talent. So this weapon isn't really the killer. The St. Elmo gives us 20% crit hit damage, 20% weapon handling, and 20% crit chance, which is pretty nice. And then we have plus 30 rounds, and that's why it has such a large mag. We got assault rifle, health damage, damage to targets out of cover, 1.5-second reload, very good. And the talent is about acquiring shock ammo. And so after 100 stacks or hits, the next magazine will be filled with that shock ammo. Probably seen the St. Elmo on other Ongoing Directive builds being used as the primary weapon. Now, the problem with that is the hollow point ammo will overwrite the shock ammo, and then the shock ammo will overwrite the hollow point ammo. That's, I guess, okay if that detail doesn't bother you, but it bothers me a lot because that shock ammo is hard to acquire. It takes 100 rounds to get it, and it's highly useful. It's really useful. One of the things that makes this weapon stand out. As a matter of fact, I believe the best thing about this weapon is its shock ammo because you can use it on demand on who and when you want to use it. The Scorpio shocks enemies too, but the enemy's got to be strong enough to take 6 rounds from your weapon, or that also means your build is weak and the enemy's still standing after 6 shots. And so your weapon isn't dishing out any additional damage, only status effects until you get to the shock, where you're better off running with, on a build like this, with Sadist and getting that additional 20% amp damage and just pushing the enemy out of the way instead of trying to shock them to death, which is just ridiculous. And the other thing about special ammo, whether it's bleed or shock, doesn't matter, is that once the enemy is under a status effect, you cannot apply another status effect on that enemy while they're under that same status effect. So you have to wait for them to come out of it before they will accept another status effect. The problem with that is you're not going to just stand there. That's ridiculous. You need to get them out of the way, right? You need to finish them off. So what it's going to end up happening is you're going to shock them, and then while they're shocking, you're going to be using all of your shock ammo until they're dead. And so in that situation, they only got shocked twice, and that was an invulnerable elite, of course. So he only took shocked twice, and so I wasted all of my shock ammo on one enemy. And such a waste, and a very non-strategic way to use this weapon. Now, a lot of people use a weapon because it is a fabulous weapon, and it also has great crit and handling mods, and that's a perfectly acceptable reason to use this weapon. But when it comes to builds like Ongoing Directive, it's a waste to just sit there and to throw away your special ammo. And it's the same thing for the bleeds. Now here's how the mechanic is going to work between the build and the 2 weapons, all right? So yeah, the tip I have for you today is before you get out there and fight, come into the testing range and get all the special ammo that you need, and then go fight. That way you're starting off your fight easier. We're gonna put on the same ammo, and then we're gonna get the full 100 stacks that we need to get our special ammo. There it is. Cool, so now we have a full mag of shock ammo. We're gonna use the shock ammo that we earned to get our bleed ammo. So we shock, switch weapons. We got 10 seconds to kill. Now we got all the bleed ammo we need. Now we can do it again. Just mark him and then switch to our pistol. Now my pistol has bleed ammo. So now all 3 of my weapons have special ammo that I can use strategically when I need to. And so I don't use the shock ammo until I need to or want to. One of the other things that makes this setup stand out, and even better than possibly like having the Scorpio here, because you could just run the Scorpio, okay? But what the Scorpio can't do is shock enemies at range on demand, right? Remember, it takes 6 rounds on the same enemy in order to get that shock. You know, there's also the disorient, which is a little bit helpful too. My point is, in shotgun builds, distance is your worst enemy. So there are targets that'll set up a turret, or the targets that are shooting at you from a distance, and your shotgun just has horrible range. Okay, so you see that? Horrible range. Now, obviously the target's standing still, and we're actually closer than the enemy probably would be in the open world. What you're gonna be able to do with this setup is you can shock them, run over there, and then kill them. And you'll see in the gameplay, whether it's this build or the other builds, the mechanics are the same, okay? And that's how we're using the shock ammo. We're using it to acquire our initial bleed ammo, and then we're using the shock ammo strategically on demand against critical targets. Okay, Bandidos, so now it's time to look at the second build. The weapons are all the same, so I'll just quickly flash at them. The only thing you need to know here is that it no longer has a laser pointer. We have crit chance mod here. Same talent, same secondary weapon, same ELMO'S exotic. But now instead of technician, I am running firewall. What's cool about firewall really is that it gives you this shield. So we got shield health, we got active regeneration, so we get better mods with this, and then 5% damage bonus per enemy. And actually, I don't run shield health here. That's wrong. This should be an additional 1%. So I go 12% damage bonus per enemy. Isn't that great? That's per enemy standing in front of you. Multiple enemies, if you got 3 enemies standing in front of you, that's 36% additional damage. We're definitely using this for its damage, but again, what's important about the shield is that it's keeping that micro damage away from you, so that whatever heals that you have on your build don't have to work that hard. So that's what it is, but you're not a tank, remember that. However, this shield is stronger than the first builds because we are now at a tier 3 shield. Still running the fixer, Now, as far as the setup goes, notice it is a little bit different. So we saw the chest piece earlier, but just to show you again here, I got weapon damage, crit chance, and we are running with the talent. It's called Parabellum Rounds. It's giving us an additional 15% amplified damage. It's only for you. That won't work for your groups. It says 35% there, but it's talking about the 20% from the 4-piece talent plus an additional 15 for a total of 35% amplified damage. So we have 50% crit chance and 81% crit hit damage. The biggest piece that's different is the backpack. So this one is running the memento, and this is one of the best pieces for that playstyle. So it gives us the 3 cores. I love that. If you notice, our armor is actually higher on this build, and we'll talk about that in a second. I have crit chance, and then we're playing into all of the short-term buffs as well as the long-term buffs. So we can get 5% weapon damage per red core per kill. We got 5 red cores. So that means we can get 25% weapon damage on kill. That'll last for 10 seconds. Now, when we get 30 kills and get all 30 trophies, we're gonna have an additional 30% weapon damage on top of that. Now, that 25% weapon damage on kill is stackable. So it goes 25, 50, 75, 100. So you can stack those, right? Because they last for 10 seconds. And that's in addition to the 30% weapon damage that you've accrued. And then we're gonna get 10% bonus armor per blue core. We got 2 of those cores, and now we have 20% bonus armor on kill. I prefer bonus armor on kill than regular armor on kill. And that's because you can go above and beyond your base armor with bonus armor, where regular armor on kill doesn't allow you to do that. In other words, you can become tankier. And that makes an additional shield a blue shield for your protection, so you don't have to rely on your hard shield as much. That also means you can move faster, because when you have your shield up, you walk slower. You can drop your shield and take damage to your chest and be okay with it because you got a blue shield, the bonus armor. Why? Because we talked about earlier how distance is your worst enemy when it comes to shotguns. They have a very short damage drop off. I'm talking inside 10 meters. All right. So that's where you want to be with your shotguns. 30% skill efficiency at full stacks. Okay. And then we get 5% bonuses every time we kill somebody. That skill efficiency is going to give us 30% more repair skills for this, as well as duration, and better skill haste for all of our skills. So going to give us more shield health. And it also means we got 30% more status effects on our loadout. That's in addition to the 15% status effects. So you can see longer shock and longer bleed with this backpack. I decided to go with the contractor's gloves. Your choice can be to go with something like Cheska or Grupo. However, damage to armor is going to give us a greater impact, so I decided to go with that. And we have crit damage and another armor core, so that way I can be a little bit tankier, have a little bit of a stronger shield, and make use of that bonus armor. So we're also going to have 3% armor regen when we're at full 30 stacks on this backpack. So that's our main source of heals. So between the 30% armor regen and this fixer drone, the shield, and the blue shield / bonus armor, we don't need any armor on kill on this build. Our survivability was really high. As a matter of fact, I don't think we ever went down with this build, and we cleared several control points. So you can go gunner if you want to, but you're gonna be missing out on some great power that's coming off of this shield. Shotguns are the most difficult class to use in the Division 2, and the reason why is because they frequently come with very slow reloads. Not all of them. This one's actually pretty decent because it's a mag reload, but they frequently do, as well as small mags, and the handling isn't very good, and the damage drop off is very short. So you're talking like inside 10 meters. But what they do have is lots of power. So if you are standing in front of the enemy, one shot or two shotting an enemy isn't that strange of a thing to accomplish. It's really common. It's like the sniper class. The weapon alone comes with enough damage that it gives you a lot of flexibility on your build. But here lies the challenge, is you got to get to your enemy. And so that's where people struggle with shotgun builds. And really, it's how you're playing with it. You know, you don't really want to run straight at enemies, right, and absorb all that damage, even though you have a shield. The slower you are, the more shots you're going to take. The bigger you are because of that shield, the more shots you're going to take. And so by the time you get to that enemy, you got a broken shield and you don't have any armor left. That's what shotguns do to you, is they make you cross terrain and take every bullet along the way. So it's all about really your flanking pattern and constant movement and being very fast and confident, you know. So if you see multiple enemies, don't be afraid to jump in there like a mosh pit and take them all out with your elbows. It's what you got to do with this shotgun. Be quick, mind your angles, know where all the enemies are, and don't take damage damage from distance. Just don't take damage from distance. So think about how you're gonna avoid that. Well, try kicking off the fight near the spawn doors, wherever those are, depending on the control point. So know your control points. Get ready for that second wave early. So when you know the second wave is coming, start making your way to that general direction so that you're closer to the enemies and they don't set up camp and set up turrets and start foaming you and shooting you with turrets and stuff like that. You know, anyway, so when it comes to shotguns, yes, they are the most difficult to use, I think, in this game, even beyond pistols and rifles and snipers. They are the hardest to use. But if you can master shotguns, then you can master this game. That's what I always say, because you have to be good at flanking and you have to have really good situational awareness. This is the SIG MPX. Isn't she a beaut? So she comes with lots of crits on her and lots of mod slots, as you can see. And so I have crit chance, damage to targets out of cover on this, and also Sadist. That makes her very strong with that 20% amplified damage. So this weapon works on both builds. So all you have to do is equip it and you're good to go. Just make sure you have SMGs selected on your specialization tree. But from there, you're good to go. You don't need to make any other changes to the build. So if you're not comfortable using shotguns like the Tsunami, then try this SIG MPX. I wouldn't try the Vector. I think the Vector is too fast and not strong enough. Okay, and what I mean by too fast is that you can potentially waste a lot of special ammo with that. And so it's better to have a little bit slower and stronger weapon so that you kill them with less ammo so that you can use that special ammo on more targets. This is the nastiest little hybrid and a must-have build for year 5. Watch this video next.
Follow me.